Welcome to our Benchmark 7 Masterclass. As an organisation, our mission is to work with schools, colleges and employers to help every young person find their best next step. Key for us is to ensure careers education has a measurable impact on young people now and in the future, that we include all young people in careers education, removing barriers where we can. From this mission, we have a real emphasis on impact, and the key areas of focus for this session are around amplifying technical routes and activity leading to action for young people. There are also links to inclusion, specifically transition, where talent can get lost, and supporting careers leaders with a nuanced understanding of the barriers young people face. The Careers and Enterprise Company are the national body for careers education in England, delivering support to schools, special schools and colleges to support 21st century careers education for all young people. A huge part of that work is driven by the funded Careers Leader training offer. It is crucial to note that understanding how to build and lead the implementation of a strategic careers plan and progressive careers programme aligned to your school, special school or college strategic priorities is a key learning outcome of our funded Careers Leader training offer. All career leaders, and there are now over 2,000 who have accessed the training, will have already covered this part as part of their work on the training. The impact of the training on all benchmarks is strong, and Benchmark 7 is no different, with an approximate 10% increase in schools and colleges meeting the benchmark where the careers leader has engaged with the training. If you go to the Careers and Enterprise Company resource directory page and search for Careers Leader Training, you'll find the relevant page. Stop and reflect on this big question for a moment. What is Benchmark 7 about? What's the careers leader responsible for in relation to Benchmark 7? Who else is responsible? Essentially, Benchmark 7 is about supporting students to understand all learning opportunities that are available to them, including vocational and technical routes, and the provision of meaningful encounters with providers of the full range of learning opportunities. That may be the headline, but what does it mean to understand all learning opportunities and then to be able to identify and pursue their best next step? What's actually involved in making this a reality? This quote is taken from Career Guidance and Access for Education and Training Providers, July 2021. Schools and colleges have a responsibility to set students on the path that will secure the best outcome, which will enable them to progress in education and work and give employers the highly skilled people they need. That means schools and colleges must act impartially, in line with their statutory duty or contractual requirement, and not show bias towards a route, that be that academic or technical. They should promote a full range of technical options. This is in the same vein as supporting young people to identify their best next steps. There's a deceptive simplicity in that mission and in this quote. It's a high concept that is dense with detail that needs to be unpacked. This quote also starts to push towards some guiding principles that we'll explore that can have an impact for your young people and their outcomes. In this session, we're going to revisit elements of Benchmark 1 and contemplate the value of a progressive approach to Benchmark 7, consider engaging wider stakeholders, supporting young people to understand all learning opportunities. We'll also touch on elements of Benchmark 3 and the use of destinations data, and Benchmark 2 labour market information. This benchmark is a multi-benchmark vehicle delivery system when approached with meaningful intent. We'll end on a takeaway resource that really captures how to deliver meaningful activity that supports impact for young people. Firstly, we'll consider a progressive approach and building upon thinking based in Benchmark 1. When you consider the aim on the slide, think about words, which words would you underline as key? For me, it's progressive. It's each and every student or young person, and it's covering the full range of learning opportunities. When thinking about Benchmark 1, we consider a good careers programme as being progressive, where learning and skills development are planned and delivered in an order that builds on what's gone before and prepares the young people for what's to come as a scaffold towards an end point. This learning and skills development should start as soon as students join your institution, and possibly even before if you're already working with other institutions at key transition points. A progressive programme scaffolds what students need to know, understand and be able to do in order to find their best next steps. And this is akin to how all of the subject areas within schools and colleges will scaffold their programmes of study. Benchmark 3 focused on addressing the needs of all pupils, and a good careers programme therefore is planned to meet the needs of each and every student. As a career leader, you'll not only shape the pieces of the programme, but you'll set the course for it in terms of where it's going and the planned intent. And of course, as part of this, using data to evaluate that provision. We see the ultimate intent of a careers programme for young people to find their best next steps. Through Benchmark 1 and indeed the funded Careers Leader training, careers leaders work to articulate the knowledge, understanding and ability needed to support every young person in finding that best next step, to break this down into a progressive careers programme. Here, we're looking at one element of the careers programme for young people to understand all learning opportunities available to them. What does it mean for a young person to understand the full range of learning opportunities? Let's really focus on this for a moment. What does it mean for every young person in your care to understand the full range of learning opportunities available to them? Some aspects to consider may be equality of access to understanding all routes without prejudicial or stereotypical thinking, parents, carers and staff, their knowledge, understanding and potential bias, destinations data, what can you ascertain from this, and alumni and their career paths. You will have considered others too, but let's focus for a moment on the phrase available to them. Where is availability of binary opportunity, i.e. the opportunity itself exists or it doesn't exist? Where could it be potentially based on a subjective prejudicial point of view held at an individual or an organisational level that may prevent young people receiving equity of access to the resource and support to all routes and pathways? In terms of SEND, there's fantastic resources around destinations for Group 1. That's the group not likely to take GCSEs. You can find these in our resource directory. The caveat, of course, comes back to the more binary question of whether or not opportunities actually exist locally. We recently convened a research forum of careers leaders on what works around Benchmark 7, and collectively they identified these key principles for meaningful activity around the benchmark. Key emerging learning won't surprise you, that is that the choice that young people make between HE, FE and apprenticeships is heavily influenced by their demographic characteristics, in particular social class and prior attainment, which are obviously intertwined, and gender. The clear implication, Benchmark 7 needs to explicitly challenge assumptions and address barriers. A first step is making sure we familiarise ourselves with all routes and being open to all routes, particularly the technical and vocational. The first part of the quote here sums this up. Working with the Enterprise Advisor Network can support you in engaging with all providers regionally. There's also a fantastic resource for careers leaders on the resource directory, which explains technical pathways, as well as promoting the wider work of the training providers or the independent training provider sector. The equality of access to information and understanding is critical and does link to challenging misconceptions, helping students and parents, carers and staff to see all learning opportunities as equal is a key element of Benchmark 7 and a way that you can impact approaches to young people understanding all pathways. Reflect on the statutory guidance from 2021 featured earlier, which highlights that schools and colleges must act impartially, in line with a statutory duty or contractual requirement, and not show bias towards any route, be that academic or technical. In emerging work on what works around Benchmark 7, it's noted that parents and carers and other relatives are the individuals consulted most by young people, followed by subject teacher and friends. Those following technical routes were much less likely to have consulted their subject teachers. The implication here is that parents and carers need to be equipped to have career conversations with their young person. The first quote on the slide highlights misconceptions that can be held by young people, yet of course conscious and unconscious bias can also exist for careers leaders, SLT, governors, tutors and parents and carers. So there's a task for the careers leaders around considering not just the knowledge and understanding of young people, but also the trusted adults around them. Access our resource directory for more support with working with parents and carers through our Talking Futures. This is a suite of resources designed by the Gatsby Foundation to help you to support parents and carers to have constructive careers and education conversations with their children. Consider all stakeholders and their knowledge, understanding and potential misconceptions. Starting early came through in our recent research, and the imperative for this becomes clear having explored what's involved in every young person in your care, understanding all learning opportunities. The volume and progressive learning and skills development involved necessitates starting early, in addition to ensuring that misconceptions don't take root. From the emerging work in reviewing what works around Benchmark 7, we know that for many people, choices are developed before 16 years of age, and for many, these choices are maintained. That choice may be a particular career or a desire simply to go to university, but it appears that for many young people, this is a stable trajectory. At pre-14 age, young people were already engaging with ideas about their chosen career path, but these are not definite. However, they do put particular options in or on or off the table, and they rank those options. This goes full circle to the first point about demographic considerations and what young people are likely to have encountered and seriously considered as a feasible option for them. Young people's options are based on idea-forming events such as childhood experiences, contextualised background information or factors such as their community setting, for example, destination norms, maybe home setting, and parental aspirations. The implication here, young people need to be finding out about different options from a young age, and in tandem, we need to take the trusted adults also on that same journey as true advocates for all routes. The final guiding principle is around you being informed by trends and success, using destination data and LMI to identify any gaps and implement appropriate intervention and to inform continuous improvement. This involves harnessing employer and alumni voice through multi-benchmark approaches where young people can be supported to understand learning opportunities through encounters and experiences of the workplace. There's a lot to unpick here, so we're going to take this through step by step. So one straightforward way to support young people to understand all learning opportunities is to set progressive learning outcomes for your students from an early age, not just because there's so much to cover, but also to support young people in keeping all options on the table as viable possible options before choices become fixed. Setting clearer learning objectives is important in this respect to ensure this entitlement is met. A head teacher in our network challenges other heads around why they ensure that all students have got access to a full curriculum for maths, but not actually ensuring that all students have parity of access to a careers curriculum. A starting point for new career leaders is to refer to the CDI framework and select some key learning objectives for students to support them in developing knowledge and understanding of self, opportunities, career exploration, and of transition. Start small on this, trust your judgment on what to focus on, and remember the mantra, do less and achieve more. There's more support on this in the recording for Benchmark 1 Module 2 webinar, and of course this is a key focus of the funded Careers Leader training. For developing expert career leaders, you may wish to consider the full CDI framework or refer to other frameworks for inspiration in covering all learning opportunities. One key feature, for example, of the North East Regional Progression Framework is that they also set learning objectives for parents and wider staff. This links to earlier thoughts on what's required for young people to understand all learning opportunities, ensuring that trusted adults around those young people also understand all learning opportunities. It's really crucial to reiterate that if you're new in role or you're pressed in terms of time and resource, then start small with key learning objectives that will support students to understand all learning opportunities. Other learning objectives can follow. This is one of the 6 learning areas from the CDI framework. Based on your context and priorities, consider which aim jumps off the screen as a priority for you, say for Key Stage 3. Which aim for Key Stage 3 would be front and centre for you to embed and have confidence that every young person would have the relevant knowledge, understanding of all learning opportunities. Having clear aims helps you become much more focused on what needs to be done. Once you have your aim, activity evolves from it, and then you're in a position to prioritise work, say no to things that aren't going to deliver on your priorities. You can then confidently build on this. A key aim that pops off the screen linked to benchmark 7 for me is that all young people are aware of the main pathways. When thinking about all 6 learning areas in the CDI framework, there are other aims that also contribute to young people understanding all learning opportunities available to them. With benchmark 7 in mind, this is my subjective interpretation of a starting point, and I've highlighted it here in the teal colour on the slide. And these would be my non-negotiables to work towards achieving benchmark 7. So in year 7, they know the full range of pathways, and this should be recorded, tracked and measured. In year 8 and 9, they're able to look objectively at all routes without prejudice. So in other words, they're keeping everything on the table. By year 10 and 11, they're able to navigate a pathway based on informed decision making. This is therefore not dependent on happenstance, not reliant on demographic considerations. This would support development of knowledge, understanding and ability to truly allow each and every young person to apply the information and identify their best next step. The second aim, to explore how to support whole staff and parents and carers understand the full range of learning opportunities. We've touched on this through considering guiding principles and have learning objectives that also evolve for trusted adults. First priority for a foundation level is to support young people. Once you're up and running with that, you may want to consider your approach to ensuring that key influencers are confident and equipped to have effective careers conversations with these young people. I'm going to pause this webinar so you can consider what might hinder those conversations. What are potential barriers to parents, carers and staff understanding or being open to all learning opportunities? The career leaders we worked with in developing this session identified 4 main barriers: an evolving and more complex landscape with more complex choices. So lots of new qualifications, new pathways, and so it's difficult to navigate around them all. The impact on benefits or household income, so feeling that some routes are perceived to be out of reach due to the cost. The perceived difference in prestige or rigour between routes, so there's still a perception that some qualifications are worth more than others when they may not be. And some simple lack of knowledge or awareness and no access to key information or lack of information around trusted sources in order to gain this knowledge. This is a quote from a careers leader in the forum. The education landscape has changed significantly since many parents and teachers were at school, and they need support to understand the raft of new qualifications, including the new T levels, and perhaps also to understand why these qualifications might be suitable for a wide range of students. So it's not just those unable to or unwilling to go to university. The punch of this quote from the research forum is about equality of status of each learning opportunity as a genuine option, rather than one route being only considered for those who do not express an interest in the traditional pathway into higher education. And our challenge is informing and changing these perceptions. So let's consider solutions for a moment. How do you support staff and parents and carers to understand all learning opportunities so they're supported and confident in having effective careers conversations? Do you tackle this head on so other routes are genuinely being considered, even once a so-called traditional route has been discounted? Here are some of the solutions highlighted by the forum. Participants in the research worked hard to engage parents and carers, staff and governors in communications and activities about technical pathways so that students receive consistent messages and support from a broad range of people. The activities are crucial as they push beyond passive communication and start to really support engagement and development in knowledge, understanding and the ability of adults around the young people to have effective careers conversations. CPD was a common feature of many participants' efforts at engaging school and college staff in understanding and valuing all learning opportunities, explaining through events the variety of options available. One 11 to 18 school ran a careers event in the town's shopping centre to raise awareness and to catch parents and carers who didn't always engage with school events. Another school careers leader cited an interactive event that was entitled "How Things Have Changed Since You Left School," to meet parents where they're at and engage them in understanding the pathways and choices rather than delivering information through a newsletter or a website. So please refer to the Talking Futures Toolkit for a deeper reflection on approaches and how to engage with parents and carers depending on their context and needs. You can find this in the resource directory. Participants in our forum were clear on the value of employer and alumni voice, with one careers leader citing that the parents are very resistant to technical, almost all favour academic. They don't understand that you can get a degree via an apprenticeship. However much I tell them it's the same level as a degree, they don't seem to believe me. We'll touch on how aspects of Benchmark 7 can be delivered through Benchmark 5 and 6, through meaningful encounters and experiences of the workplace in the final section of this session. But this quote does highlight the real opportunity for employers to potentially relay messages directly to parents that school staff might struggle to convey. Alumni voice came through incredibly strongly as an impartial and impactful and effective approach to supporting young people, parents and carers and staff to understand and value all learning opportunities, with one careers leader citing, "It's undoubtedly the success stories of our former students that have convinced them that it's a viable and worthwhile alternative to the traditional academic route." Another angle to consider is parent voice perspective. What can you share with your community about parent pathways and successes to shine a light on the full range of learning opportunities? Careers leaders in this research were combining information about technical learning pathways and the career opportunities they can lead to with labour market information, or LMI, and with destinations data to build knowledge and confidence among students and parents. So let's think a little bit more deeply about using LMI and destinations data to support effective practice within Benchmark 7. The third aim, therefore, is to understand effective use of destinations data and LMI to inform universal, targeted and impartial planning, implementation and evaluation of Benchmark 7 activity. There's a clear link here to Benchmark 3 and the use of destinations data, and also to Benchmark 2, labour market information. A colleague recently described his approach as having two rhythms in terms of destinations data. The first rhythm is a bit more short term and is primarily year 11, year 13, around intended destinations and the September guarantee, and to young people finding their best next step. The other rhythm is a bit more long term and involves him as a careers leader looking at trend data from destinations and LMI to inform thinking and strategy and to shape his progressive careers programme. It's this longer rhythm that we'll focus on here, making sure that there's consistent offer for each and every young person, and the shorter term preparation that builds on this at transition points will be picked up in a later workshop. What does destinations data cover? You have intended destinations. These are student plans before they leave school, special school or college, where they think they're going to go and what they plan to do. Actual destinations. This is where students transition to, what course qualifications they are actually following. Sustained destinations. The pathway students are in for the 6 months between October and March after leaving school or special school, the 6 months after they complete year 11. Then we have subjects, pathways and institutions. In all these cases, we would want to have more detail about where and what students are learning. It's key that you're realistic about what data you have. You may have a lot of data from alumni tracking, or you may only have lagged insight or destination measures from official data sources. Whatever you have can be used to give you a steer on any strategic direction or programme content going forward. For example, as a governor of a school, I looked at insight data. Their sustained destinations data stood out. A much higher percentage of students were not sustaining destinations beyond 2 terms compared to the regional data. So I'm now working with the careers leader to understand why that is and how we might reflect this in future planning of the Progressive Careers programme that we offer the students currently in school. As covered previously, some destination data is more readily available. If you have Compass Plus, it's easier to record intended destinations, and we all have access to the insight data. The level of track data at student level will vary according to data sharing agreements with local authorities and post-16 providers, and with how you maintain alumni records. The key is how you use this, irrespective of how much you've actually got. If you consider how we use the destinations data to review provision, there are some questions that reoccur. Consider how you use your enterprise advisor or your governor to support you in reflecting on these questions in terms of your strategy and programme content. So the extent to which you have an appropriate intended destinations as they approach the end of school or college. So how ambitious are these intended destinations? Do they align to local needs and or national growth sectors? The intended level of study in relation to student attainment. Are they progressing to the right level courses based on their academic profile? Of course, this leads to further questions around who decides what's right and how. Are there misconceptions held at an organisational level that need to be challenged? Disadvantage, gender and ethnicity gaps in intended natural pathways, including technical education and higher education STEM. Do you know the percentages of your groups and where they're destined for? How do your gaps, if you have gaps, compare nationally? Trends in NEET, those are not in education, employment and training, or trends in EAT, who are in education, employment and training in relation to your careers programme. Are there patterns over time, or can you explain these using individual case studies? And the trends and outcomes 3 and 5 years after leaving school. Again, what are the emerging patterns, and can this information be used to plan forward for current or future groups of students? If you search within the resource directory and put in destinations data, you'll find some useful documents. You'll find an analysis example, and you'll also find an example of a school's destinations report. So you can download those to support you in your work. I'm going to pause here for you to make a note or set a reminder to analyse your destinations data if you haven't already done so. So what does your destinations data tell you? Another source of information to inform an impactful approach to Benchmark 7 is the Future Skills Questionnaire, or FSQ. The questionnaire is administered from the Compass Plus platform, with students' questionnaire responses linked directly back to their individual profiles. The Future Skills Questionnaire supports careers leaders to evaluate their careers programme by gathering data on students' careers, knowledge and skills. This should sit within a wider programme of evaluation, also looking at feedback, education engagement and destinations data. For support on how to evaluate your careers programme, see our Impact Evaluation Toolkit on the resource directory. A huge thank you has to go out to Mark Fox from the North East LEP for this information on key sources of LMI, and on the next slide around data sets. There's many, but here are some key sources. The Office for National Statistics. This is UK's largest independent producer of official statistics, and the recognised National Statistical Institute of the UK, collecting, analysing and disseminating statistics about the economy, society and population. We have the Official Labour Market Statistics, NOMIS. This is a service provided by the Office for National Statistics, giving free access to the most detailed and up-to-date UK labour market statistics from official sources. This provides access to a range of data, including industry classifications, area profiles, earnings, and travel to work. Then we have widgets, LMI for All. These are two interactive tools to compare basic statistical information about jobs and assess your skills at the same time. Both Careerometer and Skillsometer can be embedded into third-party websites. So thinking now about LMI, labour market information is vital in a careers programme so that young people are familiar with the world of work around them. Through the careful and targeted use of LMI in an institution, the careers programme can give both important information about industry sectors, job forecasts, and the skills and qualities employers are looking for in their workforce. Simple and useful LMI can also be found in some of the young people sites, such as iCould, First Careers, Careers Advice, School, Children, and Start Profile. Labour market information, LMI, key data sets. Again, I'll pause to allow you to take the headings down. This is the hardcore statistical information for people who are looking for specific information on the labour market. Used in the right way, these data sets can add credibility to any teaching about the labour market and emphasise key points about the world of work in careers discussions, in class or homework, or even with certain curriculum subjects. So we have Employer Skills Survey. If you see the list of occupations for examples of different job roles at different levels. Office for National Statistics, industries related to sectors people work in, individual jobs within industries. There's information on over 850 occupations. There's an annual survey of hours and earnings that's published every year. There's data on hours worked, pay, full-time, part-time employees in industries and occupations. And you'll also find the Labour Force Survey, which is updated every 3 months, and that covers data on employment, unemployment, and the claimant count in the UK. We've then got, again, NOMIS, the Official Labour Market Statistics. They do annual population surveys, and this covers employment, housing, ethnicity, religion, health, and education. They have a Business Register and Employment Survey, again, annual. This is the official source for employee employment estimates, in other words, who's working in what industry. The gov.uk site, you can find the Employer Skills Survey, again, published every 2 years. These are the skill needs, training and business strategy. There's data and analysis from HESA, that's the higher education statistics. These are student numbers by courses, institution and criteria, destinations, and much, much more. So in terms of labour market information and key data sets, this is really, really hardcore information, and it really can support you when you are having those conversations and discussions. I'll pause for a moment so that you can stop and set yourself a reminder to take a look, if you haven't already done so, and reflect on what relevant LMI information tells you. This slide is a revisit of an activity in Benchmark 1 where careers leaders can plot key elements of provision within a SOAR analysis. SOAR is strengths, opportunities, aspirations, and results. So you can start to inform reporting and continuous improvement. The link for this can be found in the resource directory under Gatsby Benchmark 1, Module 1, Creating a Strategic Careers Plan. The fourth aim is to explore how careers in the curriculum, employer encounters and experiences of the workplace can support students with other stakeholders to understand the full range of learning opportunities. There's a clear link here to Benchmark 3 and the use of destinations data, and also to Benchmark 2 LMI. A colleague recently described his approach as having the two rhythms, and we've talked about these before. So again, just something to consider. You know, that short-term work around intended destinations for year 11 and 13, and that longer term using the destinations data and the LMI to inform and support your programme. Links to Benchmark 4. So staff CPD. So from the research forum, there was a sense, as you can see from the quote, that many staff have got limited or out of date experience of career pathways. So CPD and regular updates are needed to promote positive perceptions, challenge fixed mindsets, if there are any, and enable staff to speak confidently about different pathways, especially those pathways they've not personally experienced. Staff are trusted adults and will be having careers conversations whether they realise it or not, particularly form tutors and people in pastoral roles. Careers in the curriculum, resource and support. My Learning, My Future is a suite of Benchmark 4 resources to support subject staff. There's over 20 subjects at Key Stage 3 and 4 to engage students in curriculum learning by highlighting the relevance of their subjects to future careers and opportunities. The resource also helps staff to consider pathways directly related to their subject. The aim of the resources is for students to see the relevance and value of subject curriculum teaching and learning, and to be explicitly supported in making connections between subjects and pathways to positive transitions. There's a wealth of other resources on the resource directory helping staff to make connections between their subject and different pathways and LMI. So for example, for maths, there's Why Bother? And there are plenty of other examples. Careers champions. Careers leaders can also disseminate information to subjects via careers champions. The links to Benchmark 5 and Benchmark 6. Individual Gatsby benchmarks don't need to be delivered in isolation. Often multi-benchmark delivery can be most effective. So some careers leaders explained that in their establishment, subject teachers often invite providers to talk about specific qualifications or pathways linked to their subject. So they're covering Benchmark 4 and Benchmark 7. Similarly, in order to highlight the connection between pathways and careers, some schools invite both employers and learning providers to careers fairs so that young people can understand what pathways lead to what career outcomes. Again, combining Benchmark 5 this time with Benchmark 7. This helps with context and can also be more cost effective and really maximise the time employers give to schools and colleges. In the Benchmark 6 resource, setting aims and learning outcomes for experiences of the workplace is a recommended starting point. This could be around those learning objectives that we considered from the CDI, explicitly linked to understanding all routes and ensuring that the experience is focusing on maximising all opportunities for young people to understand the value and feel of learning opportunities. One careers leader noted that their students didn't know what they didn't know. So assemblies, presentations in colleges or from colleges can be inspiring and lead some students to be more curious and investigate. But when they really see something and actually experience it physically, that's even more powerful. So this quote from a careers leader is a perfect example of a benchmark 5 activity which can be tailored through clear learning objectives to support young people to understand pathways within their wider journey of understanding all learning opportunities. It's interesting that this is a blended model and that it can be delivered either virtually or face-to-face. Another career leader noted in the research forum that the pandemic has forced a change to vital approaches, some of which will be integrated into ongoing practice. So I guess the message there is, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Indeed, many intend to continue to use some of the virtual approaches alongside face-to-face, since they actually gave access to a wider range of providers and a wider geographical area. To try and draw everything together, we've built on the Making It Meaningful toolkit and approach and have developed a Making It Meaningful guidance for Benchmark 7 that is available as a key resource to support you to incorporate the guiding principles towards impactful activity that supports young people to understand all learning opportunities available to them and to help them find their best next step. The Benchmark 7 Make It Meaningful guidance resource takes you through a planning progress where deep thinking can be considered alongside more practical considerations. For example, when planning encounters with providers covering the full range of learning providers, are you supporting equal access to information and understanding? Are you considering virtual versus in-person events? Are you weaving in key destinations data or LMI insight to tackle trends or to support access to opportunities? The guide then takes you through the delivery of encounters for Benchmark 7 and also supports through the reflection, celebration and progression from these encounters. We've referred to lots of resources and support that should help support meaningful approaches to Benchmark 7 and other benchmarks, and these can all be found on the resource directory. If you haven't signed up to receive Careers Leader communications, please do so and join the thousands of others who get regular access to key resources and support from us. You can locate the link if you go to the website section, I'm a Careers Leader. It's on that page. We are delighted to highlight our online learning modules with separate online learning modules specifically tailored for different people. So for careers leaders, there's an ideal induction. For education leaders, there's a careers awareness module. And likewise for governors, there's also a careers awareness module. Crucially, to really get under the skin of meaningful approaches to the benchmarks and to support positive student outcomes and to support your young people in identifying their best next steps, find out more and engage with our funded Careers Leader training offer. This now includes a new distance learning option that can be accessed at a pace and time to suit you. Again, you'll find this if you search for Careers Leader training on the resource directory. Thank you.